We want to dedicate this episode to our friend and colleague, Miguel Mike Pine. Enjoy.
Welcome to BrainStoke. I'm Tom Telford here, Preston Niederhauser with Zach Chatelain. We are in Biker's Edge, basically Preston and I's bar. This is where we come. Yeah. This is our watering hole. Our couch is right over there. This is awesome. This is exciting, and it feels like a long time in the making. Today is brought to you by Levo, a mind care company here in Utah that employs mental health professionals who take care of people who are dealing with all sorts of mental health conditions and struggle. And we thank Levo for their support. Let's dive in.
Zach, so my understanding is there's a rumor that you have a pretty good idea of who your top 5, top 10 customers are. Pretty sure there's some software that tells you that.
Yeah, we could probably find that out.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we going to reveal this?
Well, I don't necessarily. If we were to combine the two, where would Tom and I rank as customer dollars spent? Well, don't say the dollar because our wives listen. But
I mean, I got the info right here. So
is it kind of like
bribery? Blackmailing, I think, really. Yeah. So
no, this is absolutely our favorite place to spend all of our disposable income.
And we appreciate it.
We're here. I think we're both here probably twice a week.
Yeah.
So
it ebbs and flows according to payday. But
well, we'll keep you rolling one way or
another. It is true, actually. When my wife says go to the grocery store, I'm like, I'm not sure what we're out of in terms of like nutrition for the bike, but I think we're good. So yeah, we love Biker's Edge. This shop has been a staple for 20 years. Congratulations in the community.
Thank you.
We're going to dive into that a little bit more, but yeah, we love the place. And to be frank, although we're addicted to bikes and the sport of cycling, Zach's the man, and he's taken care of us for many, many years and been just awesome, and we appreciate him. So, Zach, tell us about you. Let's get first your background, your story. How in the world have you lived in the biking world this long?
Oh, geez. I mean, it started off on my 16th birthday. I got a mountain bike. Most 16-year-olds for the birthday get a car. But, you know, I had a friend who is still literally like my best friend for, man, pushing a lot of years now, 30 years now we've been riding together. It's like we're sitting in Spanish class, and he's showing me this mountain bike action magazine. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And so he's like, yeah, I just got a bike. And so roundabout ended up getting a bike for my birthday, and just kind of started there and just absolutely fell in love with it. You know, started riding more and more and more and more, and started working on bikes a little bit and whatnot, and then decided that I probably needed a job. So I ended up asking for a job at a shop that's still around up north a little bit, and worked there for a bunch of years.
Did you actually bring home a paycheck, or were you spending it all on ProForm deals?
It was
wheels,
all on bikes.
Yeah,
so yeah, all on bikes.
Do you remember what that bike was? The specs of that first bike?
It was a yellow. I hate saying the word. It was a yellow Specialized rock hopper.
Sorry, I asked.
No, it's a little. No, that's good.
The Death Star? Yeah. You started on the dark side?
I started there,
okay.
You know, but quickly transitioned.
Okay, you saw the light, born again.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah. And so, about the time I turned 17, I was working at that shop. Worked there through college, everything like that. Got like a tech sales degree up at Weber State. And, you know, it was just kind of time to move on to something else. And so I actually got a job at Trek Bikes. I was working there in Wisconsin, which is quite the change from Utah.
Yeah.
But I mean, kind of cool in its own ways.
Yeah.
really cold, but kind of cool.
Were you single at the time?
No, I was married.
Okay.
So we moved to Wisconsin, just the two of us. Bless my wife. So yeah, I mean, and she's a Florida girl. So moving to Wisconsin was not on the list of her things to do in life. But so worked there for a while, and I mean, we found out as absolutely a surprise our first son was coming along, and we were pretty young, and you know, we decided to head back. You know, part of me goes the job was going well, you know, and I could, nice company, I could have still been there, you know, but we came back, and I went back to work for the bike shop for just a little while. And then my wife reminded me I had a college degree and was working in a bike shop for like $8 an hour, and probably needed to do a little more, especially since we had a kid on the way. So one of my best customers there, Taylor Satterthwaite, which you guys know a little bit, he owned an automotive like performance tuning brand, Edge Products. And so I've always kind of been into cars as well. And so I'm like, well, you know, Taylor's such a nice guy. Let me go talk to him about getting a job working for him. I mean, tech sales degree kind of lines up, right? So went there, and then Taylor, who was like the nicest, most excitable guy ever, he's like, I want to do something in the bike industry. I'm like, great. What are we going to do? He's like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, I know bike shops, you know, and it you know, makes sense to me. I was still pretty young then. I was like 24 years old. And Taylor trusted this 24-year-old kid to go start a bike shop for him. And so that's what we did. I mean, and since day one, as more or less just let me do what I felt was best. And so definitely appreciate him for it. He's still my partner, and actually his cousin Brett's my partner as well, but they're the most silent partners ever. They come in, grab bikes, and say, hey, how's it going? And see you later.
Yeah.
You know,
Love those partners.
you know, I pretty lucky, pretty fortunate
That's
there.
cool.
But yeah, we started a little shop in Bountiful, corner of 4th North and 5th West. I think there's a vape shop there now. We were there for about year and a half or so.
Yeah.
And it
I
was
remember
working.
going in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was busy out of the gate, it felt like.
yeah. I mean, it's amazing. I've now had months better than our first year. But, you know, we're just kind of rolling. And I think one of the best things I can say is I was too young to know better. Fortunately, my dad raised me with a heck of a work ethic as well, you know, and so, I mean, there was so many 80-plus hour weeks, and young child and wife that's working and everything going. But, you know, luckily my wife was willing to sacrifice, you know, and I mean, sacrifice by never seeing me, but just worked and worked and worked and pushed. And so, yeah, about a year and a half later, we start looking for a building. You know, that spot was great, but in the end, you know, if you're going to have a business, owning a building actually is probably one of the smartest things you can do.
Yeah.
And so we were looking around, and word got out to Bob Bush, who was the owner of the bike rack. Guy's in his 60s or so at that point, but owner of the bike rack, had this building we're in now, which frankly on the interior looked way, way different.
Yep.
In fact, this spot that we're in right now was not here. There was a wall blocking everything off, and it was just storage and stuff. So, but Bob came to me, and one thing led to another, and we ended up buying the business and the building from him. We had 2 shops for a little while the other lease ran out. We kind of didn't know which direction we were going to go. Just could never find another building in Bountiful, and so ended up just kind of closing that one down and going here. My wife does say that was the day that I went from an absolute psychopath to at least somewhat stable, I guess. So, but yeah, I mean, that's, 18 and a half, 19 years ago at this point. And from there, we've been here. Yeah, just growing slowly, or yeah.
Who did you lean on as you were making these huge decisions? I mean, as a 24-year-old, it's impressive.
Yeah.
Right? Was there somebody you were leaning on, really relying on for guidance, or was it?
You know, Brett and Taylor were always happy to give input if I asked for it, but honestly, like, and a thing that I appreciate, they were never forcing their input on me ever. You know, I know you guys know Jeremy Venz, and so Jeremy has been, in a way, kind of a mentor of mine for, I mean, most of the 20 years.
Yeah.
Still helps us out here. His wife is my office manager. Like, so on the financial side, I think that's where, I mean, that's who was kind of helping me. On the shop management, inventory, everything, I mean, it kind of on me. Not trying to not give anybody credit, but
Yeah.
it's just the way it went,
Yeah.
you know, and a lot of it's feel, especially early, was more feel than numbers and everything like that. Maybe as we've progressed, we rely on numbers and whatnot, but I still think in the end, feel, you know,
Yeah.
just experience as well at this point. And
Totally.
so, and that experience has been awesome, but we've had our rough patches, but
Yeah.
you know, here we are.
Yeah.
When you look at those early years, do you think there was one skill set or something that helped you, whether connecting with the customer or the ability to connect with, you know, the shop men or women who are working here? Is there any one thing that, you know, just turned the corner for you that way?
You know, I think it's a combination of things, and it's, I guess I apologize. I'm not one to talk about myself much. You know, it's just not me. But I will say that, I mean, I will take the opportunity of, you know, taking a situation that might not be perfect and you can make your best customers out of it, you know, but also just caring, being attentive, caring, and finding the right people to surround yourself with. And so, and that, I mean, you guys have had businesses for years. That is absolutely the hardest thing, but also the most rewarding thing. And, you know, it's just, that's the biggest thing. And you guys know so many of my employees that I've had through the years.
Yeah.
I need to go count them because it's, you know, we generally hover around 20 or so employees here. But, I mean, there's been hundreds.
Yeah.
And so, for some guys, this could become a bit of a career, but for some guys, you know, it's just a stepping stone, like a really fun summer job or going to school job or whatnot.
Yeah.
So,
Those early years, there were a handful of, you know, guys who worked here who I just loved them. And to this day, you know, it's fun to follow their careers. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the Pantones, Johnny Hinsey.
I mean, this is a seed shop for envy, I swear, for years. So I literally had to tell Jeremy and Sarah before, I'm like, okay, you keep taking my good guys. So, and for good reason, you know?
Yeah.
And some of them are still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
In fact, I mean, Jason, Jake, Ike, Johnny, I feel like I'm missing somebody. They're all still there, and they've been at Envy for well over a decade.
Yeah.
for sure. Good humans. And, you know, when I think about who they are and what they're doing now and knowing kind of where they started, I think it's cool because your legacy isn't just a bike shop. You really have coached up a lot of cool guys.
Well, thank you. I agree, though. I mean, good people. And, you know, I've said this before, and I think the best thing about owning a business is getting to work with the people that you want to work with. And so, I mean, you're never going to be perfect at choosing the right people, right? Mm-hmm. But finding the right people, working to keep the right people, and surrounding yourself with the right people, like, I can say now, like, this is the best crew we've ever had. And everybody kind of understands what we're shooting for, which is, I mean, truly exceptional customer service and showing people that we care.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's only so much that you can do in certain circumstances, right? Like, our service area gets backlogged. COVID and whatever, there's parts not available. But, you know, just showing that we care and we want to take care of people is crucial.
Yeah.
One thing that's always impressed me when I walk into the shop, well, there's a couple things. First of all, over the last probably 5-8 years, it's always a familiar face that greets me at the door. There's been some stability here
Yeah.
with regards to your employees, lack of turnover. We're always greeted, and someone steps behind the counter, and clearly they've been taught or trained. This is what we do.
Yeah.
We greet the customer, we come help them, and we guide them to their first stop in the shop.
Yeah.
And even though I know the shop as well as they do, maybe they still do it, and I'm always impressed by that. As clearly they've been trained to do it the right way.
Well, and we never want, I mean, guys like you who are literally in here a couple times a week, we don't want you to feel like you're unappreciated. We don't want you to feel like, oh, it's just Tom and Preston. It's fine. They're fine. They're just wandering around. Yeah. Like, no, like, you guys are friends. I mean, almost everybody who comes into this place is here because they want to be.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't have a business. This is not healthcare. You know, like, people are here because they want to be. And, you know, I feel like if we treat them right, they'll keep coming back.
Yeah.
I want to talk about healthcare in just a second because I think that the bike shop has become, my
Yes.
healthcare.
Yes.
Which
Mine too.
is why I'm happy to make the investment. But the last couple days, as a business owner myself now, I've been studying a lot on some of the challenges that we're having. And one of the things that I keep coming back to is, well, two things. One, as a business owner, you have to have an insane amount of grit to do this.
A lot of determination.
I mean, you mentioned
Yeah.
your dad teaching you and work ethic. So I want to hear about grit and where that came from. The second is, in order to do this the way you've done it, it seems like there's a skill set of just leadership that at 24 you may have not had. So I want to hear about that because it seems like the tone that you set, even watching you on social media, I feel the leadership come from you. Just you live this world. It's not just, hey, I collect a paycheck from it, but I have an alter ego somewhere else. Like you're on the bike every morning. You're out
if I
using
can
your
help it, yeah.
product. You're out.
Yeah.
So talk about that. Talk about grit and leadership.
So, boy, grit side is just, it's kind of funny. In a way, to me, it's just, I'm just going to do it, and I do think leadership towards my employees and whatever, it's like, there's not anything in here that I'm not willing to do, and I'm taking out the garbages, I'm cleaning up, and it's just, I think, showing people that I'm not above anybody else, we're all here as a team and we're all working together. And, just the grit to keep pushing, I get burnt out. Everybody's like, you have your dream job. I'm like, I do. Like, I absolutely do. But it's still a job.
Yeah.
And there's still days where I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's usually when I don't get my ride in, like something else, like a podcast in the morning pops up. And I don't get my ride in. Yeah. So
let's leave right now. All of us want that ride.
Exactly. But, and just keeping a good mental state. And it's funny, I'll be honest, there were years where I barely rode. You guys know the time of life where your kids are young, they're super reliant on you. My wife has always worked. We didn't have the stay-at-home mom opportunity because it's a bike shop. Nobody's getting rich here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, just pushing and making things work, and I don't think there's just a give up feel to it. Now, sometimes stuff doesn't work, but it's never a give up. It's a shift to something that does.
Yeah. You've literally had and raised kids all while building this business.
My son, Danik, literally in the Bountiful shop, crawling around in diapers, like on days that my wife was working. So, we had a moment. It was when we were here. He's probably 2 or 3. He's running around in the back. Literally, this 2 or 3-year-old kid, toddler, goes down and licks up metal shavings off the ground. Probably an OSHA violation we got going on here, but
it was his kid.
Yeah,
no lawsuits.
Licks up metal shavings off the ground. I remember I had this service manager at the time, Chris, and huge guy. 6'7", 300 pounds.
I remember Chris.
Huge. Grabs Danik by the back of his neck, kind of squeezes his neck so he can't do anything and starts scraping the metal shavings off of his tongue. I'm just like, that's my boy. But yeah, thanks to Chris for intestinal trauma avoidance. But yeah, just always being here, but raising kids here. You know, my daughter, between kindergarten and daycare and stuff like that. I mean, up in the office with me, you know, she's watching. What was she watching? Jeez, Little Einstein and stuff like that. Yeah. Like up there, as you know, I'm working, she's working. They've grown up here. My daughter's literally here right now, working in the background. Yeah. And just being able to have that involvement, you know, and you know, hopefully teaching them a little bit as well how to work. You know, I don't. Neither of my kids are going to take over the business or anything like that, but it did hopefully allow me to kind of teach them a bit of that work ethic that my dad did, yeah. And yeah, kind of nice to have that opportunity, I guess, in a way. Haven't thought about it much, but thanks for the question on that.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. When I think about the legacy, you know, this is Preston and I are so possessive, you know, about this shop. Uh-huh. It's really interesting, but there have been over the years, people will come to us. We've been coaches, right? We are involved in the biking community. We get questions all the time from people about where should I go? What's my shop? How should I do? You know, and we talk about Biker's Edge all the time. It's interesting for people to come to us and say things like, we just can't get in. We can't get our bike in and out fast enough. You know what I mean? Like just the moments where people are griping, they want whatever out of the local business. And it's been interesting just over time to be able to see people's sentiment about their expectations from a shop or from their discretionary income and all of those things. And Preston and I have responses to people about that, you know, but how do you deal with that, right? The monotony to a degree of coming in every day, building a business, you know, over 20 years and trying to deal with just public sentiment.
And the expectation of that consumer.
I mean, that is probably the hardest thing.
Yeah.
You know, and we are in a retail brick and mortar establishment. I mean, I'm held hostage by Google reviews, you know, and I mean, but it's hard, but you do have to accept and you do have to hopefully explain that there's only so much you can do, you know? I mean, the customer is always right thing. The customer is always valuable, I think is what I would say. And so we're going to absolutely do everything we can to make sure that customer's happy and make sure that customer wants to come back time and time again. You know, but sometimes the customer has an expectation that's not possible. You know, I truly value my employees, and there's only so much we can do as a service center, you know? And so, and I mean, yeah, we're farther out than we'd like to be, but you know, we're trying. We're trying really hard.
Yeah.
So, but I do think, like, I think that's something that shifted. I mean, I just set an appointment for my truck to get worked on, and I mean, it was out 2 weeks. I'm just like, it just kind of is where a lot of industries, a lot of service industries are right now. Is, you know, demand's still fortunately high, but you just trying to keep up the best you can.
Yeah. There's definitely a recalibration of expectations, I think, that's kind of going on in the world. But part of the reason I lob that softball to you or at you is because I want people to hear, one, your story, know the human behind all of it, and to help people at least understand these are still humans who are trying their, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Trying their best and just, you know, doing what they can. And there, to be honest, there have been moments where people have said some things and I wanted to punch them, you know? Not just because I love this shop and the brands or whatever, but people who don't necessarily appreciate all that goes on, you know, behind the scenes, keeping good people.
Oh yeah.
Having a great place that's going to take care of you, having someone that greets you when you walk in the door. So, I mean, it sounds like I'm a Biker's Edge apologist. I'm not trying to go there. I just want, you probably very rarely get thanked, you know, for what you do and how you do it. And anyway.
I mean, it sounds so corny, but my thanks is seeing people just love cycling and just seeing how it does absolutely make their lives better. And I mean, it makes my life better. I mean, like I was kind of alluding to, there's times where I didn't ride much. There's times where I was so burnt out here.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, my kids were young. There just wasn't time to focus on me. It was focusing on business, focusing on my marriage, focusing on the kids. But it was about 8-10 years ago, I made a very conscious decision to start riding again a lot.
Yeah.
And you guys know me. If I'm not riding 5-6 times a week, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
But that, like, focused and real decision to get back to what I loved about what I did and am doing was an absolute life changer.
What did it do? How did the day change when you came into work, knowing you've already been on your 2-hour ride?
Yeah. I mean, it's it's such a mindset change, right? And that's what you guys are so focused on. And I just love it because, I mean, there's so many parts of it. There's the enjoyment side of it. There's the exercise side of it. There's just the release side of it. I mean, we are all so busy and so stressed, and all these outside surrounding things are out there. And I just truly feel if you don't take some time for yourself consistently, you just burn out and melt down. I mean, I'm 45. I've got all these friends out there that I watch who, I mean, all that's there is their job. And then, I mean, they've got families, and, you know, all that's there on the weekend is soccer games and this and that and the other. But the ones that I feel like are truly enjoying life are prioritizing themselves, at least some.
Yeah.
Like, you have to. And so, unfortunately, I have a wife that, like, absolutely understands that it makes me who I am and it makes me happy. And if I can't ride, if I'm injured, if I'm whatever, I get grumpy. But, you know, a bad day on a bike is a good day. So,
Yeah.
But a great day on a bike is just mind-changing.
Yeah, it is. I actually, and I don't know the year that happened where you kind of said, I'm gonna own this, I'm gonna do this. But I remember it happening to a degree because I remember thinking, one, Zach, you know, dropped whatever pounds you dropped. I don't know.
It was a lot.
It was big. But I actually saw a difference coming in the shop, you know, to an extent. Maybe you can speak to this, but all of a sudden it felt like the local business went from survival of just the busyness of it to a professionalism that went up a notch.
Oh, absolutely.
All of a sudden employees were, to Preston's point, they interacted with you differently. You know, it went up a notch in terms of just professionalism. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, not that I noticed before that it wasn't, but there was something that went on. Again, you set the tone in the leadership, and it just seemed different after that.
You know, and it really was. You know, and it changed. My focus came back around to the shop. You know, I was still running a business.
Yeah.
And, you know, but my focus came back around to the enjoyment of what I do, and really do appreciating what I'm doing here and taking this as just like such an awesome thing in life instead of a 9 to 5 or whatever, 10 to 7 here. It really did just change. I mean, I wouldn't be here today. I don't think there's any way I'd be still owning the shop if I didn't ride all the time. Because my love of that 16-year-old kid came back around. I truly love bikes. I'm such a nerd. Like, I am, I have to stop myself. I have, like, I don't know exactly what that limit is, but, like, I'll reach a limit of bikes that I have at a time, and I'm like, nope, you got to cut that down a little bit. So,
What is the number right now, by the way? How many bikes are in that garage?
Well, part of them are here, but there's about 5 right now.
Yeah.
There's actually 6. There's 1 or 2 that don't get ridden a whole lot, but you know, they're there for a purpose and it's fun. But yeah, there's the ones that get ridden a lot, but you know me, I love trying new stuff. I mean, I need to know what these bikes are.
Yeah, you're testing.
Yeah, I'm testing constantly, but B, I mean, it's just fun. Like,
Yeah.
I'm such a nerd when it comes to it, and just I think that's a lot of what keeps me going is just being able to try this new stuff and then get excited about it, find the good stuff, and share it with people who are coming in. And a lot of my employees are really that way too. Like, everybody here rides, and it hasn't always been the case, but we've had a real shift to making sure that we are hiring cycling enthusiasts, people who love the sport, people who love what it does to them and their life, their mental health, their physical health, everything. And man, what a difference it makes, because a lot like when I made that change and I started riding again, these guys here just, they're happier. They wake up, they go for a ride. I mean, it changes them, it changes lives, and it's just awesome. And they get to geek out on all the cool stuff too.
Yeah.
We've also kind of shifted a little ways away from every 16-year-old kid wants to work in a bike shop if they're into bikes, right? I mean, that was me. That was absolutely me. But I think the industry and just consumerism in general has come to an expectation of professionalism that I have had some 17, 18-year-old kids here who are so bright and so good. And you guys know some of them. But, you know, we've got adults a little bit more now. And that's been kind of the focus, and trying to make this a manageable career, you know, or at least something that somebody can feel comfortable enough doing. None of us are going to get rich here. But hopefully the day-to-day is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But having those adults has been key. And I think that's part of what you guys feel when you come in.
Yeah, totally. You know, you and I have talked often about just our careers and the way my career has been impacted by the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And the last 4 years, it's been very similar for you. Has that been the hardest challenge of your career the past 4 years? And maybe why or why not?
I mean, in so many ways, yes, you know, but it has been such a roller coaster, right? I mean, you start off with stress. You're like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Like, what is gonna, like, do I need to cancel all my orders? Do I need to, like, literally, like, kind of panicking? And I mean, I mentioned Jeremy earlier. I will absolutely credit Jeremy that sat down, had a discussion with him, and he said probably the best words that he's ever said to me, which was, don't put yourself out of business. You can go bankrupt for X, or you can go bankrupt for X times 2. You're still bankrupt. So don't stop everything. And we didn't. And so we had to make some changes, and you had to jump through all the COVID hoops and everything like that. But, you know, we still brought in product, and we still pushed, and I didn't lay off employees. And we decided, it's like, let's just see what we can do with this. And it paid off. I mean, you guys know, it was nuts. I mean, I will never, ever, ever have a couple of years again like we did through COVID. I mean, our shelves were empty. I had 20 bikes in the shop and couldn't get anything.
Yeah.
And so, you know, not a whole lot of discounting going on. So we were making better margin profitability, but we didn't have the products to actually supply. And I know you guys came in needing something, and I said, sorry.
Yeah.
And kind of hard spot to be in, but it is what it is. So that's like the roller coaster up. But now we're dealing with the roller coaster down, which is we had this huge influx of people getting into cycling, you know, and getting back to cycling. I mean, all the things say, all these people get into cycling. I mean, I think every bit as much or more were people getting back into cycling, coming back to something they loved because they needed that stress relief. They needed that outlet, right? And just a huge, huge difference there. And so what happened in this industry, and this might be boring or whatever, but there was no availability of everything. Then in the fall, all the companies had all their stuff show up at once. And so we went from an inventory, like I've got our inventory number X. We went from about half of what we normally would have in inventory to a solid 50, 60, 70% more than we had ever had in inventory because I was afraid to not take it because when are we going to get it again? We had to cut that valve off real quick. So, and thankfully, I think we reacted more quickly than a lot of shops did. And then we reacted more forcefully than a lot of shops did in trying to get back to a good level. And so, that's been really hard though, but sales cut down, margins have plummeted because now we have all this product that we got to move. Yeah. It's getting old, but we took the stance of it's not getting more valuable. Sell it for what you can, and let's get back to a good place. And so, I'm hoping we're getting close to a good place again.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool new stuff coming out. We actually didn't get a ton of cool new stuff during COVID because the companies just couldn't supply it. And I mean, that stuff's starting to come out now, and it's fun and it's exciting. And I mean, the developments in e-bikes and the developments in, bikes in general have just been huge. So
I love that you share that context with people because we need to connect a dot here that we started off with, and that is that although biking is cool carbon fiber, amazing stuff, like there's such a cool factor to all of it. But in reality, this is how we do healthcare.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Preston and I were out last night with probably 30 riders in Mountain Green, and guys now come up from Davis Camp. They're coming from everywhere to this ride, and they come because it's hard. Mm-hmm. They're doing something hard, and they choose to do it hard because when they're done, they've sweated, they've been out in the sun, they're stoked, they're with friends, they connect with people, right? I just listed all the attributes of great mental health.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I love for people to understand that, imagine showing up in the healthcare system and all of a sudden there's no one there to help you. And I know that sounds extreme to some people listening, like, there's always doctors there, there's always the ER or whatever, but most people are looking at biking or they're looking at exercise or they're looking at these activities as their preferred form of mental health.
Absolutely.
And I have to just comment on this because I spent, a month ago, I was at a conference, a mental health conference, and one of the top presenters who was there was a psychologist. And his whole presentation was, the premise was a Harvard study. And the Harvard study basically said 90 to 95% of all sickness, all ailment comes from stress.
I believe it.
Think through that, in terms of, business ownership,
Yeah.
Preston, providers, stress is a killer. It's a killer to health. This is our preferred form of, stress relief. And I just think it's cool how you've come through all of it, the ups and downs, and that's positioned people to still be healthy. And I want to just tie it to that because somewhere along the way, people wouldn't have what they have in their preferred form of exercise and healthcare if Biker's Edge didn't take some risk.
Yeah.
Right? So thank you.
Yeah.
One for that. Tie it back now to your relationships with people who come in. Do you ever actually get into their lifestyle that way? Do people talk about that to you, that it's their healthcare, it's their release or whatever?
All the time. I am the number one proponent of, this is health, this is happiness, this is enjoyment in life. Healthcare is, like personal healthcare, keeping yourself fit and feeling good. Could you imagine not? Right?
Yeah, well, I have. There have been moments, you talked about moments in your life when your kids were young, starting a business, owning a business, taking all that risk. My lowest points of the last 20 years of my life were when my health just exploded.
Absolutely.
I was way heavier, stressed. I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue, all this stuff. But as soon as I circled back to, here's the difference. There's reactive healthcare, which is, oh crap, it's now hitting the fan and I got to go see a doctor, right?
Yeah.
I have all the symptoms that are negative versus proactive, which is I'm going to do something every day to stay ahead of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, I've had moments where my health suffered. Generally speaking, I think most people who are the provider in the home, their responsibility is for providing financially. I shouldn't maybe say that because the stay-at-home responsibility is just as heavy. It's just important to stay ahead of it versus the reactive side of it. So, Preston, I'm interested for you to respond to this one because I've seen in the last year it's a huge difference. You've dropped weight. You're riding a ton. Comment on that for you.
Well, yeah, no, I was sitting here thinking exactly how this question relates to me and what's changed in me over the last 2 years. Much like Zach, the atmosphere in my career has been extremely stressful with regards to COVID and flowing product from overseas. And it's still going on. I'm dealing with it this morning in emails. Like, it's pretty stressful. Freight is getting crazy again. There's just all these things. But as I look back on how well I've managed the last year and a half personally, and that I can compartmentalize and put it out and go exercise, and then I can come back and I can deal with it. And it's not as draining. I don't get as emotional about it or attached to the problem. And I just find this ability to really just feel like it's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's going to be okay. You can't solve it immediately.
Well, and and I think fixers. I'm a fixer.
Yeah.
I know you're a fixer.
Totally a doer. Yep.
And you need to get to a point where you can say, I can't fix that.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're going to address it the best we can, but you can't flip a switch and fix everything immediately.
Yeah.
But I think seeing you as that personal release, because I mean, I know personally, I am always thinking about the shop. Brock, my sales manager, makes fun of me all the time. He's like, even when you're not here, you're working. You're just not working here.
Yeah.
And it's true. But when I'm on the bike, that switch flips.
Yeah.
I don't think about it. I'm thinking about my ride. I'm enjoying it. And it's just such a different mental state for me.
Yeah. I think you pulled me aside probably 2 weeks ago here in the shop, and you're like, you look good.
Yeah.
Or you said, I don't know about
You're
good,
fast.
but you said, maybe I don't know. But
There was some man crushing going on, I think.
Look at those veins in his legs, man.
hey,
Those
can
are
you pan that camera
incredible.
down? No, I just, it has been so rewarding to be able to make this change.
Yeah.
And it makes me regret actually not committing sooner to my personal health with regards to riding a bike. Like, I didn't handle the first year of COVID well. I was way stressed with work. And all of that time I could have had and used, I didn't. It made me really disappointed. But as I think about how the bike has benefited my life, specifically both Tom and I over the last couple of years, I now think about this whole new generation of Nike kids and how cool it is. Like, I've got a son that just stepped away from football, and he's riding last night in our group ride and crushing it. And it's just so rewarding because I know he's going to be a bike rider forever.
Oh, it's a lifelong
And that's the beauty.
sport, hobby, whatever you want to call it. It's lifelong.
Yeah.
And I am such a big fan of Nike. I mean, my son raced a couple years. My daughter, this will be her 6th year. My daughter, very similar. She was on the drill team. She was doing the bike team before, but literally left the drill team to ride her bike.
Yeah.
And that's like, I've never pushed my kids to ride bikes because I don't want them to look back on it and say, oh, I just did it because of my dad. I hate this or whatever. But I think the best thing about Nike and the best thing it teaches these kids is they can do hard things. So few kids and people these days like really push themselves to do hard things frequently. And these kids are doing hard things, and they're sweating and they're hurting and they're smiling after. And I think it just adds so much to them. And I mean, maybe that's something where at 16 I was riding my bike and doing hard things, and we trick ourselves into sweating. So
Tom is classic at tricking people into sweating. So this Monday, he's like, hey, I got an idea. Let's go ride up to Francis Peak.
Yeah.
But
I
instead of doing
invited Zach.
I know.
But instead of doing it once, let's do it twice.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, because why 5,000
Why
feet when you
5,000
can
when
do
you can do
10,000
10?
feet?
Yeah.
But you know what was really cool about that day? It was beautiful. It was painful. But while we're doing that, here comes the Farmington High mountain bike team doing intervals,
Yep.
catching us
Yeah.
on Monday morning. And it's just like we've got these 16, 17-year-old kids that are out here just suffering. But they roll up alongside me. We have a great conversation. They're super positive. They cheer me on.
Yeah.
And then they pull away from me. And it's just like, if the football team knew what this young man just did, it just is so cool.
It's so
What they're willing
amazing.
to do and how deep they can take themselves.
Yeah. I mean, and they just don't know until they do.
Yep. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's such a cool sport, and we could dork out on this forever, but there's something there about kids who, like you said, are learning to do hard things and positioning themselves later in life to have better coping strategy.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, I hope him someday, when he has a couple young kids and he's like, this friggin' sucks, I'm not sleeping, that there's a memory back of, no, I can do hard stuff because I climbed Francis, or I raced P2P, or I did hard things, and trying to manage it, in a positive way. So,
Well, I think just to interject a little bit, like something I've been kind of saying, like for years now, is we support NICA so heavily because, I mean, a lot of these kids, you see them, like they graduate and they're moving on to whatever it is, and they don't get to ride a lot for a few years. But you start getting into your career, you get through school, whatever you're doing, you have the young kids, and then all of a sudden you start having a little bit of time, maybe a little bit of income, and you go, man, I really like biking. And man, that was something that was such a great part of my life, and I need something for me. I need something for my mental health, for my physical health. I need something for me. And we're already starting to see it because, I mean, NICA's been around forever, and we're seeing kids come back around. And like kids that I remember just being like these 16-year-old skinny, gangly little things that are racing, coming back in, and they're like, I need to get back into this, and I need this happiness in my life. And I love it. This is a long-term thing for us.
yeah.
And I mean, A, supporting them, but B, just business-wise. I mean, if we can get more cyclists out there, it's crucial. So
For sure. We talked a lot about youth and getting youth involved in it because it's the future, not of just the sport, but it's the future of a fulfilling life with positive coping. Talk a little bit about how e-bikes have opened up this whole other generation of seniors who are getting out of the house. They're not watching maybe The Price is Right every day, the same. But in seriousness, though, I mean, I ride, I invest a lot in it because it's my best investment as someone who's an investor, by profession. The best investment I have ever made in my career is in my own self. And so when people say, you're crazy what you spend on bikes, and I'm like, it's worked. The ROI has been enormous. So
Absolutely.
that's been amazing. But now because of the e-bike, we are opening up now another phase of my marriage where when I go out, I want to ride, and I want to ride with my wife. She doesn't like the feeling of, I'm holding you back. This isn't good. You're not getting a workout. But now with this e-bike revolution, all of a sudden, we're now riding together. She's riding with our 14-year-old son, who's way faster than both of us combined. How's e-bike opening things up for age category that's, maybe not even been tapped in the past?
So I'm going to start. I am the biggest e-bike fan. Like, I truly am. You get the old grumpy side of things, whatever. I love what it opens up for people. And so, I mean, there's so many examples. I mean, there's my parents who have never ridden bikes. Honestly, never. I got them e-bikes 4 or 5 years ago. They're out like 5 times a week. It's great. I look at the guy our age that comes in, a little out of shape, loved biking, wants to do something for himself. It takes the fear out. And it's literally kind of fear in a way. It's like fear of, I can't make it up that hill, or I can't do this. But you throw that e-bike in, you're like, no, I can do it. and I can get as much workout and as much as I need, right?
Yeah.
And so like the spouse thing, and it's not just wives. It is absolutely goes the other way too, where you have or friend groups and stuff like that, where you have somebody who just loves going with people but can't quite keep up. And so you get them on an e-bike, you throw just a little bit of power at it, not the full power at it, and they're all of a sudden riding with their people, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember the first time I put my wife on an e-bike. And I mean, it's probably about 8 years ago now. I could see the smile through the back of her head as she's pulling away from me. And it was just like, it's the greatest day. And I don't think she's ridden a regular bike since.
Yeah.
And it's all right. And it's just great. I look at me, like, it allows me to ride more days. So riding 5-6 days a week can be hard on joints and hard on this and hard on recovery. And I can go ride more days, or I can go ride stuff that normally, you know, there's those trails that you're like, that climb is just brutal. Like, it might even be hike a bike climb.
Yeah.
And you pop on that, and all of a sudden you're up to the top of the hill and you're riding these great trails away from people that, you know, or just kind of getting the trail to yourself a little more.
Yeah.
Until those Nika kids show up, just at the top of the hill, just smiling at you. So, I think e-bikes just are amazing. I truly do, and they've gotten so much better. Like, we started carrying them like 6-7 years ago, and I knew it was going to be a loss for a while, but I knew it was coming. And we've gotten to the point where they're so good and they're so much fun. I don't know. I mean, I will literally chat your ears off about e-bikes all the time, but just getting more people out and getting more people healthy. And I've watched so many people go from fairly overweight to healthy because of an e-bike. And then people are like, oh, well, you can't get exercise on an e-bike. I'm like, nah. My average heart rate on my e-bike is actually higher than my average heart rate on a ride on my regular mountain bike, because you're not blowing up and then having to recover. You're never stopping. You can just go and go and go. A little more like a road bike ride, where you can keep your heart rate a little more level.
I got a couple stories.
Okay.
I got to just share about e-bikes for those who are listening in and they're on the fence and they think that it's soft or whatever. So recently I was in Park City, try to go a couple times a year, ride Empire Pass. I'm struggling, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm huffing and puffing. I'm mad. This is so steep. All of a sudden, you know, out of nowhere, a dude flies by me. And I kind of glance over, look, and my first thought was, that is a lot of old skin on that person. Like, it's pretty drabby, right? And as he rolls away from me flying up the hill, he says, you got to get one of these, you know? And it was just kind of this moment of like, dude, why are you suffering when you don't need to suffer? So, I mean, I have no idea how old he was. He was not younger than 70.
Yeah.
There's no way. Flying
That's
up
my
Empire
dream.
Pass. Yeah.
Like, truly, I want to be riding bikes
Totally.
till I literally can't anymore, and probably riding bikes beyond when I probably shouldn't. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to let us, right?
The factor to that, you know, who knows what that physically did for this 70-plus-year-old. What I do know is that dude was outside in the sun. And when BrainStoke is all about getting your 5 S's, you know, get out in the sun, sweat a little bit. I think that dude's mental health over 70 is, he won the day, right? That's all I can say
absolutely.
is he won the day. The other, you know, story I just wanted to mention that may be interesting for people. So last year in preparation for Lotoja, I went to see a doctor in Park City. And it was for him to look at. I've had 4 knee surgeries, a back surgery from all my ski racing days. And the point was to have him look at me on my bike. He's a specialist.
Yeah.
So we're in the shop, we're talking a little bit. And he's just small chat. He's not trying to tell, you know, name drop or anything. But I just said, hey, I'm curious, you know, for someone who's been at this a long time, how do you feel about e-bikes? Mm-hmm. He went off. And this is the story that he tells me. Hey, I hate to name drop, but Peter Sagan, he's a friend of mine. Peter stays at my house often in Park City, comes and rides, and Peter keeps e-bikes at my house. Who, of all people, why does Peter Sagan need an e-bike? And his point was, Peter wants to be out working on his bike handling every day.
Yeah.
He wants to work on his skills every day, but he only wants to work on his fitness about 4 out of the 7. So Peter's getting out on his e-bike on the days off where he doesn't want to burn his legs, but he really wants to be sharp mentally and to stay on his bike handling.
Absolutely.
I'm like, it blew me away of just thinking, how do I still recover, right? As I wear my Whoop, I'm geeking out on technology. Like, I'm not ready to go hard because Whoop says I can't. This is a recovery day, but e-bikes have opened up the ability to be out and work on this when I don't have to work on these, and I think that that's cool. That opens up a different segment even of my own riding when I'm out today, not for my legs. I'm out today for my head, my mind.
Absolutely. I mean, it's more miles, more smiles.
Here's my credit card, Zach.
He already has mine. I've got an e-bike in the garage.
Oh, man, I love it. Credit card is on file.
Oh, man.
What else you working on that you're excited about?
Oh, man. There's a lot of cool new stuff coming. I can't really talk about it, but there's a lot of cool new stuff coming.
That's how he gets you.
I know, but all these NDAs and stuff, they ruin everything. But, we're just wanting to keep people excited, and wanting to, kind of one of our newest things that we've been pushing is just ride more bikes. I don't care what bike it is. Just have fun. Go ride it more. And so that's one of the things we're pushing, really. For me, like personally, I'm just trying to keep up with my daughter, which is, they get faster a whole lot faster than I get faster. So, just personally trying to get in better shape and get a little healthier. And it's slowly paying off, but she keeps pulling on me, so it's fine.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love it though.
Cool.
What's the biggest bike innovation that you feel has contributed to the industry? I mean, there's probably a handful.
Oh, geez. If I have to be honest, it's e-bikes. Like absolutely without a doubt e-bikes. But I think getting into, a lot of what you guys love is cross-country bikes are fun. I'll be honest, like 10 years ago, a cross-country bike wasn't fun. It was a tool for the job.
Yeah.
And now we can get on these just amazing bikes that are so capable, so versatile, so light, like World Cup race worthy, but also just your average Joe can go ride it on the trails around here and have a great time, but not have something that's a tank. Yeah. So I think that's huge too. Boy, those would be the biggest ones. I could rattle off 20 different things if you want, but yeah, those would be.
Here's a question I've got for you and this is the most common question I get because for whatever reason people think I'm an expert in my neighborhood or because not an expert at all. But the most common question I get from a parent that's wanting to buy a bike for their kid is how much do I spend on a bike? And obviously that's such a loaded question. But when people walk in here, how do you guide people with that question?
We try to make sure that we are educating, not selling.
Yeah.
Right. It's an honest, true push for us. I think you have to ask yourself. Budget's real.
Yeah.
Like, what can you do? Right. B, how are you going to use this? How much are you going to use this? We get this with the Nika kids all the time, but I've got a $750 bike that's going to get them through the season if you need.
Yeah.
We've got. You bump up to a couple $1,000s, you can get something that's, obviously definitely a lot nicer. We get a lot of Nika kids in the $3,000 to $5,000 range because this is their thing. My daughter did competition cheer for years. I guarantee you we spent a lot more on competition cheer than what we would have not even being in a bike shop for her to ride.
Yeah.
And
probably a little bit better mental health outcome.
Oh my goodness. So many tears. That was the drill team. But, there's just steps and levels,
Yeah.
But honestly, you come in with your kid who's excited and just starting into it. If you can budget a couple $1,000s, great. But if you can't, we're going to get you set up for less than half of that.
Yeah.
But you guys have seen, you kind of start out, you might have a hand-me-down bike for your kid or something like that, but then they get into it. My daughter's bike's nicer than mine by far. I mean, I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
But they love it, and you love it. And, if that's valuable to you and if you can afford to do it, then great, let's get them set up and let's make sure they're excelling.
Yeah.
So it's not all about the bike, but the bike helps.
Yep. Biker's Edge is known for being involved in the community, for donating funds, whether to trail foundations or supporting other organizations, et cetera. Why is that important to Biker's Edge and to Zach?
I mean, there's so many parts of that, but I mean, selfishly, we want more trails, but bigger than that is just community, and it is so important to us that we help any way we can to provide places for people to get out. I mean, circling back to NICA, with the explosion of NICA, more miles of trails means more space for everybody. And so my partners, who are incredibly generous, we just did a $50,000 donation match to the Eden Trails Foundation, which is like building all the North Fork stuff. And I know you guys have ridden it, and it is amazing trails.
We were up there 2 nights ago, and I was giddy.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
So yeah, I mean, we've let them the mini excavator up there. I mean, that's just basically theirs to use permanently. And then we were doing a $50,000 donation match. I mean, look up the link, just type in Eden Trails Foundation. Like every dollar you give up to $50,000, we're literally matching.
Yeah.
And so, when you find people who are making these things happen, we have to support them. We have to make sure that this can happen. And like those guys, for instance, are doing such a great job up there. But, we've done some stuff in Davis County with Fruit Loops and helping out a little bit with the farm. And, anything we can do to make that happen. Like a personal goal of mine is to get more trails out on Antelope Island. And working with the government's a lot harder than working with foundations, but I'll get there someday. One day I'll win. So, I mean, it's just, this community's awesome. Like, so many of my best friends I've met through the shop, right? And all of my best friends I've met through cycling one way or the other. And so we just want to make sure that community continues to grow and continues to be solid and have great places to ride.
My childhood was spent on the Bonneville shoreline, in Fruit Heights. And it, those years it was rocky and a mess, and riding a 3-wheeler on it, people not happy about that. But I go now and I just think, how did this happen?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how did it turn into this incredible trail system, these stunning bridges? I mean, it's like a bike art now, out on the mountain, and it's cool. What was your involvement there? I know Biker's Edge was right in the middle of that one too.
I mean, we're just, the nice thing is sometimes we need to get super involved. Sometimes we just need to give a little, hey, and we've had some great, in fact, I was at a Davis active transportation meeting yesterday, Davis County meeting. And the people who are there, who are so just all about getting more access and more people outside, is just amazing. So it's such a community thing. But I mean, we're here to give a little, hey, we're here to help. We're here to whatever, anytime we can. And if we need to get super involved, and then we're going to get super involved, and I'm happy to.
Yeah.
Like personally happy to. But, if we just need to be there as a supporting and like factor or facilitator, I mean, we're here for it too.
Yeah. I don't know that you're under an NDA on this one, but is there any future trail systems or projects that are coming up that you're excited about?
Nothing immediately I mean, the Antelope Island stuff is always going to be a push, and we'll get there. What I'm incredibly excited, like Bountiful area. And we've had, I mean, I got to be honest, we've had really no involvement with that, but that community is putting in so many miles of trails right now, and they are so invested into it. And It's going to become a mecca. Like it is.
Really?
If you guys haven't ridden that stuff,
Man, I haven't been in Mueller Park for a long time. That
so
little pocket.
and here's the thing: Mueller used to be just an up and back, and it was way too busy, and you're always almost going to get hit. Whatever. They have 4, 5, 6 times the amount of trail there in the past 3 years, and there's more coming. And so, a lot of the trails there definitely are pretty steep at the moment. So a lot of the access is kind of getting finalized. But if you guys ever want to go, let's grab some e-bikes. Let's go.
Yeah.
But it's incredible what they're doing. Just absolutely incredible.
That's awesome. Cool.
Well, we're probably. I know you're about ready to open your doors, but I've got to share that last week I was contacted by Jeremy Venz. And he's like, "Hey, how can Bikers Edge? How can we help some of the trails you're doing in Mountain Green?"
Yeah.
Tom and I have been involved in the trails there, so I just want to reiterate that your sense of community, your sense of involvement in the whole industry is real, and it's appreciated by all of us that ride a bike. But I love how you are such an anchor in this whole community here in Davis County, but really just in the bike community in general.
Yeah.
The skill set, the knowledge, all of those things that me as a consumer really rely on is really appreciated. So,
hey, we're just happy to be here. And love talking bikes. Love riding bikes.
Thank you, Zach and Bikers Edge. We appreciate it. Thanks for having us here. You've had your daily dose.